This is Raul Lopez, and you're listening to How Do You Say Success in Spanglish? The path to success isn't easy. For minorities and people of color, many attempt this journey with little to no guidance. Join me as I sit down with individuals who share their stories of perseverance so that together we can learn how to say success in Spanglish. What's good, mi gente? Welcome back, and thanks for joining me. It's your boy Raul. On today's episode, I have Jose Avalos. How's it going, Jose?
I'm going good. I'm
Yeah,
excited to talk to you.
yeah, man. Thanks so much for being here. Just to give a little background, Jose Avalos is the co-founder and CEO of TECH23, a media and entertainment company for the advancement of Latinos in tech. With over 10 years of creating events and designing programs for first-generation college students, small business owners, and Latino techs. And as your profile puts it, cultivando una comunidad para Latinos en tech con ganas de aprender, crecer y divertirse. Jose, thank you for being here today.
No, thank you. Thank you. I'm excited. This is awesome.
Yeah, and you know, I'll start off with the bat and say Jose is also a coquito enthusiast. So
Yes.
my wife makes coquito, and he used to buy some off us every year. So I'm sure he misses my coquito,
Yeah.
but thank you so much for being here. You grew up in Houston, where obviously we met, and that's kind of where you started at. So I kind of like us to start off there and tell me a little bit about how life was growing up in Houston for you.
Absolutely. Well, right now we just hopefully finished the hottest summer I've ever experienced in Houston ever. Legitimately got an email from our energy provider saying that the reason why our bill was so expensive this month is because it was the hottest July and the hottest August on record.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
um,
I've heard it's been
this
real
year wasn't
crazy.
that fun.
No.
Yeah, so this year wasn't that fun growing up in Houston, but because I didn't get to do too much outdoor stuff, it was just pretty unbearable, honestly, to be outside. But born and raised actually in Baytown, Texas, about an hour east of Houston, but the greater Houston area. Born to Mexican parents. I'm first generation. My parents are from a little tiny town outside of Guadalajara, Jalisco, which is land of tequila and mariachi. So I'm very proud of my culture. But my parents didn't really have more than a junior high or high school education. However, they knew the importance of getting educated, and they really pushed me as far as they could. That looked like in third or fourth grade when I switched from bilingual classes to all English classes. That was when they stopped being able to help me with schoolwork because it was in English. And then after that, it was a pretty cool journey. Just trying to figure things out on my own. But I was blessed to have both parents in my house, blessed to have come from a warm, loving home. But the school part, it was just kind of me figuring it out, and I'm really grateful with God that I had the right people, right teachers, right mentors throughout the whole process to make sure that even though I didn't have anybody holding my hand, I was able to be guided in the right directions. That's not to say that there weren't challenges along the way. Most of them self inflicted
Yeah.
for my own choices. But as I got older and more mature, I learned better. But grew up, graduated high school there. The story I like to share a lot is that I was a AB student, didn't really have to study too hard to get those grades. It was pretty easy. Um, However, I was always extremely shy, very, very shy. My parents never put me in any sports programs or after school things, or they didn't know anything like that. In Mexico, that doesn't really exist.
Yeah.
There's no PTA meetings or
Yeah, the
anything.
only sports you play with
Uh,
outside soccer with the neighborhood. So
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. And if that, I mean, my dad is like, no, you go to school for a little bit and then you got like literal cows and horses you got to take care of and everything.
it's just funny when you say something like that, because it just reminds
Mhm.
me of my dad, where it's like I would go play soccer. I mean, I'd go not play soccer. I'd go do football, and I do things, and then I
Mhm.
come home and I'm like, oh, I want to go hang out with my friends. Like, what do you mean you would hang out with your friends all day? Just the idea of going to school was, "Hey, that's your
Yeah.
social life. What are you talking about?" It's like,
Yeah. Exactly. And yeah, so I grew up really shy and I always told myself, like fifth grader, you're going to sixth grade and Houston, it's a new school, you're going to junior high. And I'd be like, all right, new school, new environment, new people. I'm going to be outgoing. I'm going to be that kid that raises his hand and, I'm just going to be more out there because I used to just kind of like hide in the back and, be pretty shy. and I couldn't break that. So sixth grade came to school, and I couldn't break it. I was back to my normal like shy self. Then high school came, and I was like, all right, new school, new everything. I'm finally going to do it. I didn't do it. I was still shy. And then when I went to college, I went to Baylor University, so totally out of my element. Where I grew up, it was like majority Latino. So I get to Baylor, and it's like a predominantly white school. I still remember my biology 1301 class on Monday morning, first class in college. And I walk in, and I think I was me and this other girl were the only like non-white people there. And I was just like, oh, this is totally different. And that was the initial transition to trying to be a little bit more outspoken, just because you had to be, like, there was no other choice. Everything's different. But it wasn't until I like we can get into this later. I failed out of Baylor, that I had to go to University of Houston, and that's really, I saw that as my last opportunity to finally do everything I ever said I was going to do, and I was outgoing. Like when I graduated high school, I was so jealous of some of the valedictorians that they were like decked out in their stoles and ribbons and everything. And I was like, all right, I didn't do it for high school, but when I graduate college, I'm gonna be like decked out and everything. And I'm proud of myself because I was in student organizations and did a million different things, that really taught me about leadership and set me up the rest of my life pretty much to learn how to serve and serve others behind me that need the same resources, the same mentorship that I received growing up.
Yeah, and you bring a couple good points and all that, but one of the things I picked up early on too was about you were taking bilingual, so you were doing ESL when you first started
You
school.
know, yeah, so it's funny, traditionally, you that's for students coming, like, from Latin America, that you come in and to be immersed in English. I mean, I was born and raised here, but for some reason, they kinda put the Hispanic kids
Okay.
into ESL, like, by default.
Hmm.
And then once the teacher was able to see, "All right, you have pretty good mastery of English, we'll put you now in all English."
Nice.
I clearly remember this. A lot of my fellow students got moved in 3rd grade, and Miss Garza, and Miss Garza moved the other kids in 3rd grade, and I was always like, and I didn't get moved. Keep in mind, me and my fellow friend Myra Torquemada, we were the two smartest kids in our grade. So I was like, I remember telling Miss Garza, "Hey, why am I not getting switched? Like, I know how to speak perfect English."
Hmm.
And then she told me something. She said, "I know you do." She's like, "I don't want you to forget your Spanish, so I'm going to put you a whole nother year in ESL so that we continue to practice your Spanish." And I was really mad about that at that point. But today, I'm so grateful because, I still know how to speak it. I know how to write it, but not the grammar part. I totally forgot,
Yeah.
the accents and, all that correct grammar. But reading it, writing it, and speaking it, like I still know I'm very comfortable being able to do that. And I know a part of that is thanks to Ms. Garza holding me back in ESL classes for another year.
And that's really funny because it's as a parent now, my daughter, the challenge of teaching her to speak Spanish. Me and my wife don't
Hmm.
speak Spanish for each other. We speak English to
Hmm.
each other. I speak Spanish with my mom and my parents, and so when she's
Hmm.
with grandma, grandpa, she understands. She understands enough Spanish. She pretends
Yeah.
like she doesn't, but she understands. She'll spend a week with my mom and completely communicate. She spent her whole
Yeah.
summer last summer in Peru. So
Oh,
she,
that's right.
so she was able to get along well. But it's such a challenge
Cool.
in that whole idea is ESL. I have another friend of mine, Mauricio. I think you might have met him before. He did the same thing with his son when he started school. He's like,
Mm,
he knows English, he knows whatever, but I'm starting
yeah.
him in ESL just so he can learn Spanish. So
Yeah.
it's funny to think that way. And so obviously English was not a major barrier for you, but you did say your shyness was kind of a barrier to you.
Yeah.
And for when you're
Mhm.
applying for colleges, a lot of the times they want to see extracurriculars, they want to see things like that. Um, you know, do you think that your shyness kind of hampered you in some way moving throughout high school?
Oh, for sure. I mean, I'm grateful for how everything turned out, in the end for the experiences, but no, absolutely. I mean, I look at once I became like mega active in college, like any student opportunity for leadership or networking that was available, I took full advantage of. I realized how much I lost in Baytown, like where I grew up in my high school, because I didn't do any of that. My focus was just, passing your class and playing basketball with my friends after school. That's
Mhm.
that's literally what I did until I got a job working as a cashier at HEB. And then once I got my first job, I stayed kind of pretty much working after that. I wasn't playing basketball after school as often, but yeah, it definitely hindered me. I don't know what opportunities I lost on, right? Because I never asked, I never seeked them out. I don't know what like trips that I missed out on or scholarships I missed out on. I don't even know because they weren't even on my radar
Yeah.
at that point.
So you mentioned about being shy and some of the effects that can have in school. I remember I'm not a shy person to say, but I used to be really shy early on in my life. And then when I got to like high school, I kind of came out of my shell. And then when I went to college, I still was very social and not shy around people I was comfortable with. Like if I'm comfortable, you'd never think I was shy. But in classes, I was very shy. I've never, like you said, I've never raised my hand. I'd never answered questions. I never wanted to be I felt small at that point, when I got to college because I wasn't as smart, not as smart as I thought I was, but everything was easy that I didn't feel as smart as I was, and when things are a challenge now, you don't want to be vocal anymore because you're afraid of saying your voice. And then as I got more comfortable with myself, and it's a funny story, it was like my junior year, I think, and there was this kid in the class who was just super vocal. Every question, all the time, always answering questions to the president. This is one of my I was taking a grad level class, and he hit me up one day and said, "Hey, yo, let's study for the exam." I'm like, "All right, let's go." And then I got to start. I was like, "I'm gonna study before he comes over." He hits me up so I don't sound like an idiot when we're studying together. And bro, he hit me up and I ignored him because I felt like I was not prepared as well. I didn't want to deal with talking to someone and sound stupid. And we took our exams. He got a D and I got like an A minus or whatever. And I'm like, holy crap, the dude that's always talkative
Uh-huh.
just seemed like he was smarter. And I was actually doing a lot better. And there was a couple times that like we had at one point the same project and I was like, yo, I beat him on that as well.
Dude.
But no, like I wasn't challenging him, but it was just like,
Mhm.
but you come off as that, you know what I mean? And because when you go into college, you don't feel as comfortable sometimes that it kind of
Yeah.
puts you back in your shell and kind of makes things harder for you to feel confident and that confidence kind of builds up. So when you started going to Baylor, do you think that that shyness also affected some of what was going on there? Or was there other factors that were causing you to have difficulties at Baylor?
Yeah, there was a couple. I think I was trying to so I mentioned earlier that I was like an AB student without really trying
Mhm.
because that played a part, in getting into college. The curriculum was a lot more demanding, way more than I was used to. I realized I don't know how to study, because I've never really had to besides, like, flipping a couple of pages and memorizing a couple things, and that's all that got me through, K
Yep.
through 12.
Hmm.
When I get to college, I'm taking these. I was doing pre med and pre business. I had no idea what the hell I wanted to do. Honestly, I just
uh,
thought that
pre-
seemed like the right thing to do, and
we're on the same track. This seems. I was pre med too, so
yeah. So I'm taking biology, and I'm just like trying my best to pay attention, but there's 3 grades in the class for the entire semester. So if you mess up on one test, forget ever getting an A. Now you're just at the mercy of passing the class. And if you mess up on if you don't get a perfect score on the next 2 exams, like that's it, right? You failed the class. And I think the shyness, though, at that point, I didn't really have mentors or anything like guiding me. And I think at that point, I was also too scared to ask, to feel like embarrassed or to feel like I don't know what I'm doing, or just to sound dumb. I think that, like what you said earlier, same thing. You don't want to sound dumb. You're protecting yourself, because you think people are going to make fun of you, but in reality, like there's a bunch of people asking for help. I never once stepped foot into an office hour for
Mhm.
for a professor, and that's one of my biggest regrets. Because now that I know professors and I actually teach a little bit myself, to small business owners, it's in those one-to-ones where you really understand the concept.
Yeah.
And I know now a lot of those office hours go empty, because nobody ever like comes in except a couple of people, and those are the ones that end up getting A's because when they don't understand in class, just like you, they actually go and ask, and they're not scared to like, no, sit. You're gonna sit with me for 30 minutes, and you're gonna explain to me exactly because I don't get it, and you're the teacher, and I'm paying you to like teach me.
Yeah.
I didn't realize that that's what I was supposed to be doing, and I paid for it. Eventually getting bad grades to the point where it got me on academic probation.
Yeah, I think for me too, I think the only time I started visiting professors for office hours was because I was on academic probation. That was
Yeah,
part of my probation. Like, you have to go to office
yeah,
hours. It's like, okay, okay, but yeah, it's true. Like, you
yeah,
don't realize, how how much help they can be. It's one thing
yeah.
to sit in front, especially when you go to big schools. The
Mhm.
it's big classes, especially probably
Yeah,
biology and chemistry. They're
yeah, it
just
was a
big,
big one.
you're a big group, you're one of a small person. When you're used to small schools and you're used to being a small one, it's
Mhm.
intimidating. And those teachers can take the time, and like you said, a lot of the time it's empty and they don't do any of that stuff.
Yeah.
And so you're going through what was pre-med and pre-business, I think what you
Business.
said.
Yeah, because in my head, I was gonna be a radiologist, but have my own practice, and
Right.
I did both. I had, again, no idea what the hell I was doing.
And so, well, obviously, I mean, I did pre med, so I know you screw up early. It
Mhm.
it's kind of a big hole to dig yourself out.
Yeah.
So obviously, it seems like you dug yourself into a pretty big
Oh,
hole.
yeah, big hole.
And so, what happened to you after that hole that you dug yourself?
Yeah, so I get on academic probation 2nd semester, and I'm sup no, yeah, I was at Baylor. I was in Waco. Let me be clear. I was living in Waco, where Baylor University is, for 2 years. I was enrolled at Baylor University for 3 semesters.
Mm,
My last semester, I didn't have the grades to like. Once you get on academic probation, where your probation is that you hit a certain grade level to come, to get off of it,
mm,
or you're out of the school.
yep,
So I didn't hit it. I tried. I'm not gonna say I tried my best. I'm not gonna lie. I can admit that. Today, looking back 10 years from now, I had different priorities. What a 21-year-old college kid might have when he's living 4 or 5 hours away from home, and getting great grades wasn't one of them. I hadn't, you know, really got punched in the face by life yet, which will be coming very fairly soon from that. And then I did a semester at the local community college, and then that's when like I was like, "What the hell am I doing? Like, I can't be doing this." And once I realized I couldn't go back to Baylor, or that it was going to be really expensive, and I didn't want to do pre med anymore, I went back to I came back to Houston, and I'm not gonna lie, I came back on a high horse, thinking I was just at this private college, right? Like, man, I have to go to University of Houston. I thought of it below me, and then when I tried to get into U of H, the counselor tells me I can't get in because my grades are too low. And I was like, what do you mean? And she's like, yeah, like go try community college or something. And that was the slap in the face that I needed. I desperately needed it. And I realized when I walking out that room, and I was like, I put myself in this situation, I can get myself out.
yeah,
Um, I'm only in this situation that's really shitty right now because of because of my own decisions. And I went a semester to Houston Community College, where I now teach, which is so funny. I
nice.
teach time there. And I got all A's and everything because I wanted to get like I was like, no, I'm better. Nothing against community colleges; they're really awesome and everything. But I wanted a degree from a university, from a 4 year college, and I knew that I could get it. And walking out of that counselor's office that day when she said, I don't know, go try community college or something, that was a turning point for my life, honestly.
Yeah,
After that, the shyness, I never saw that shy Jose ever again, and I still haven't seen him. And
yeah,
I'm very grateful for that.
nice, nice. Yeah, and I think it's funny the way you put it. You sometimes you have this little high horse, like you say, because you go
Hmm.
to a
I
higher tier
was,
school than
for
other
sure.
things, and you're like, oh yeah, they whatever. And then when it's like, oh, I really wish I could go to this school at this point because I was like
Yeah.
starting over, and it's yeah, it sucks. But it's funny because what's interesting is actually that um when you talk about academic probation, that people sometimes don't understand. So you can actually get expelled from a school,
Yeah.
just the way you can get expelled from high school. Like, I didn't know that. going into college until they told me, if you don't pass this semester, you're going to be expelled. And I'm like, holy shit, I can't get expelled.
Yeah.
And yet, and you're still trying to figure out, you're probably trying to change, you probably change your major like 4 or 5 times trying to figure out what am I going to do?
Yeah.
What am I going to be good at? And if you're lucky, you'll hit one that works for you early enough
Yeah.
that your grades kind of are able to keep you floating
See.
enough to keep going, or
Mhm.
you don't. And at that age, what the hell do you know? You don't know
Yeah,
what the
no, of
hell.
course, and, what you said right now, you may hit that one class you actually do like. I realized my thing was in business, 'cause in the middle of again, I was pre-med, pre-business. In the business class, I actually did really well, but I knew, well, I have to go to med school, I had to focus more of my energy on the pre-med stuff, chemistry and all that, and I hated that so much.
Yeah.
I wasn't learning anything. It was just memorization. It wasn't a vibrant, educative environment for me. And I want to stress that like how bad I hated having to read from those textbooks, and it was not exciting. It was not fun. It did not activate my brain at all. It was just like a chore
Mhm.
to have to do this. Those late nights were like agonizing, trying to memorize 1,000 different words and what does this mean and what does that mean
And we're gonna test you on 25 of those. You know what I mean? You have to.
yeah, exactly.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then I say, like, I stress that because I absolutely love learning today. Love it. I know that if I went back to school today with this like hunger that I have for knowledge now that I carry every single day of my life, I would rock it. I would be valedictorian in the class like of the school and everything. But God had a different plan of how everything happens, and I didn't realize till after I graduated college that I actually love to read. I love
Mhm.
to learn. It's just what they were forcing me to read I wasn't interested in that. I
Mhm.
was interested in other things. So,
It's
um,
it's interesting
yeah.
because one of the things someone told me, you know, when I got to college halfway through, they were like, you don't go to college to learn, you go to college to learn how to teach yourself. You know what I mean? And
Mm,
sometimes you need to learn how you learn. And the whole, like you said, high school,
yeah.
everything was easy. You didn't know how you learned because it
No.
just came easy.
Yeah.
And then when you
Mhm.
had to hit those struggles, when you're like, okay, I need to figure out exactly how things work.
Yeah.
I mean, when I was in high school, I hated writing. Dude, if you asked me to write 3 pages, I would like die in agony of writing 3 pages or anything long. I hated writing. And then I'll get to like my junior year and I'm banging out like 25 pages in one night.
Mhm.
You know what I mean? Like I was still procrastinating to like the last day to do it,
Yeah.
but I would bang out 25 pages and get
Yeah.
like a B plus or an A minus on it. And I'm like, where the hell did that come from? You know what
Yeah.
I mean? So no, I totally get it, man. And so you end up going to the University of Houston. What did you
Yeah.
study there?
So, a cool story that happened there too. So, one, I took a semester at Houston Community College and took some pre-business courses there. Some things that I need. So, U of H told me you have to go to community college, and then those higher grades will average you out so that you can come into our campus. And at U of H, the hardest school to come into as a transfer student is the business school, because the business school there is actually it's
Yeah.
legit. They have the
Hmm.
number one sales program in the country, which I later became a part of, and they have the number one entrepreneurship program in the country, and all the other programs are like very high caliber. So they have a high threshold, you have to pass to get in. So I couldn't get in after having all A's at Houston Community College. I couldn't get into the business school because my GPA still wasn't high enough. They needed like I don't know, like a 3.5 or something to transfer in, and I was nowhere near that. So with shy little Jose being dead now, and this new person that's like ambitious, and it's like nothing's going to get in the way of what I need because I have to do this. There's no more opportunities. There's not another school. This is the last one, and I have to make it happen. I went straight to the business college, and I realized, okay, the counselor. If I go talk to a counselor, they have to ask for a million permissions for what I need. I need to get access to get into all these classes without actually being in the business school.
Hmm.
Who are they asking permission from? And then I was like, they're asking permission from the dean or the assistant dean. So I was like, so that's who I need to talk to. So I'm proud to say that I went straight to Dean Frank Kelly. He's an awesome dude. And I was like, hey, I need to have a meeting with you. And then I have the meeting with him, and I was completely honest with him.
I told him exactly what happened. I brought myself to the situation. I told him, this is how I will graduate as a role model student for this college. I was like, I just need some help. I need to be able to get into these classes. He believed in me. He signed me up for all of them. Didn't have to ever talk to a counselor my entire time there, because
Nice.
after that I would just go to him. He gave me the opportunity, and I ended up graduating as a role model student from the Bauer College of Business, which I'm very, very grateful for.
And just like you mentioned earlier with office hours, people don't use those. Like people
Mhm.
don't use their deans. You know what I mean? Like go
Exactly.
make a connection with your dean. Like I was really close with the dean of students at our
Nice.
school when I was the chapter president of my fraternity
Huh?
of our fraternity. You know,
Yeah.
and when we I would go and meet with him like once a month. I was like, I'm
Nice.
scheduling a meeting with you once a month, and we're talking about what we want to accomplish on campus. And he
Yeah.
would let us get away with so much more, find us funding for events. You know, like
Nice.
we were one of the only Greek fraternities on campus that was allowed to throw parties on
Mm.
campus, like official parties.
Yeah.
And there was times that they let us go past. You know, they usually were done by
Yeah.
12. They would let us go to one. You know, there was one night
Nice.
we had it till um, I think, what's it called? Daylight savings came, so we were there till like almost 3 in the
Oh,
morning
nice.
partying. So, and they, I mean, meeting all the people at the student union, meeting your things like all of them will have your back. And when you leave college, getting a recommendation from a teacher for something is great. Getting a recommendation from the dean of a dean of something
Yeah.
is even better. You know what I mean? And
100%.
and they always just like professors, they have office hours. They're
Yeah.
accepting people
For
to
sure.
go in there, and I think we don't know the resources we can use sometimes.
Yeah.
Was there other resources that you used that helped you out while you were at University Houston?
No, dude, people was the biggest resources for sure. What you just said about the dean, that was top 3 like power move that I did as a student. Is as I built my relationship with the assistant dean, I was running for president of this organization called the Hispanic Business Student Association. I had a whole thing planned. I thought I was a shoe in for the role for sure. I was wondering with the universe, like why it didn't happen when I didn't get the position, because I had so much I wanted to give the organization that gave me so much. This HBSA, I want to give them a shout out because they were instrumental in my development and leadership, emotional intelligence, personal development, public speaking, like all these soft skills that I still use till this day. 10 years later after graduating, I would practice them like at least once a week with this organization. But when I didn't win the presidential title for this organization, which was like the largest student organization on the entire University of Houston, so it was a big deal. So I didn't get it, and at first I was like bummed about it, but then because of my faith, I quickly realized, all right, God, you didn't want me to do that. So what do you want me to do? Because this is really, really good information that I want to pass on to other people, and resources that I now have access to that I want to share with other people, and connections that I have access to from U of H. And then I ended up starting my own nonprofit and leadership program, which ended up being so much better than what I wanted to do, because now I was able not just to serve these students at this one student organization within this one college, but the entire campus. And I realized the bigger picture. It later turns on to a nonprofit that we're serving all the colleges and community colleges and universities from the greater Houston area. And we're partnering up with like Macy's and the Galleria to give these students a brand new tailored suit and like all this other stuff. So I'm grateful for those failures as well, because it was a pivot into something bigger. And I'm grateful I didn't at that point didn't bum about it too much. I got to work like the next day, and I'm like, all right, where does this information need to go then? But the dean, she's not the dean anymore of that college. There's a new dean, which I'm cool with as well. But one day when I didn't get the president role for the student organization, I was like, okay, well, now I have a lot of free time for my last semester here, because I had it all planned out. My last semester, I'm going to be president, do that. Um, I was like, I've never met the dean before, and my student, like my tuition pays for her salary. So I asked my assistant dean, I was like, hey, what is a meeting that she's never had before with the student? Like, what's something she really likes? And because that me and him had a good relationship, she's like, she really likes milk and cookies. And I was like, done. I was like, I want to have milk and cookies with the dean. And I had milk and cookies with the dean. And from that, there was this like prestigious like little student video that they would do, like a student spotlight, and it's on YouTube. uh, that they do like the whole college does the whole like 30-minute highlight on a student, and I always thought those were the coolest things ever. And I was like, before I graduate, I want to get one of those. I share my story with the dean, tell her about my family, my mess ups and everything, and how I got to here and how I'm a role model student. And she's like, we need to do a video spotlight on you. And I had that connection right after that. So making friends with not just staff but faculty, like everybody, is a huge power move that not enough people take advantage of. Because to us, I think as students and early in your 20s, you're like, that's just another professor, it's another adult, right? Like, whatever. Like they're just clocking in their hours, but they have a lot of power and a lot of access to resources that you desperately need. And that's always my biggest recommendation to students, is to like go meet the dean. Do you know who they are yet? And if you're like, no, I was like, I think I've seen them once or twice. I was like, okay, stop everything you're doing and then focus 100% on landing a meeting with this person, because that's gonna just accelerate anything you were gonna do alone. Him or her are gonna accelerate you tremendously on anything you were gonna do by yourself.
And they can help you get out of pickles as well. And
Yeah,
and it's, you don't want to meet your dean. You want to cultivate a relationship with
yeah,
faculty. And then,
yeah.
another thing I always recommend too. One of the things I did, somebody told me this from the get go, is as a freshman, when you'd have if you have what's it called, work study,
Mm,
go apply for a job at financial aid
yes.
office. You know what I mean? Get to know everybody at financial aid. That way, when you get screwed and you need some extra money, these guys will help you push you. Oh, we
Yeah,
know Raul. He needs,
yeah.
okay. When I had issues with financial aid, I call them like, okay, we can't do this, we can't do this, but we can do this, and we can get you this, and they'll
Mm,
tell you exactly. And you don't have to wait
yeah,
in line or wait 3 days for a call because they know you. You know what I mean? So it's about trying to use your resources there. I didn't use it enough. All my resources in college, I saw a crap ton of money from student loans, which
yeah.
I'm guessing when you left Baylor, you probably left with a lot of student loans too,
Oh,
right?
yeah, I took a really nice souvenir with me.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Thank you for failing out here. He has a whole lot of money,
Yeah,
and that's something that a
yeah.
lot of people don't realize either. College is
Mhm.
expensive, especially if you leave with nothing in return.
Yeah.
you know, if you
Mhm.
quit halfway through or after 2, 3 years, you still got to pay for those 2, 3 years.
Yeah,
And I mean, we can have a whole discussion outside on a
yeah,
different topic, just on how to challenge and try to get past that or whatever. But
yeah,
yeah, you get out of college, you graduated, you became a model student to the point that you're having cookies and milk with the dean, and they started a whole new thing for you. And now the real world
yeah.
starts. You know what I mean? Tell me about that journey.
Yeah, I had a very unique experience where it was like up trajectory, up, 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 up. Like I graduate decked out in everything I told myself I was going to be decked out in. Also the honor that when I'm graduating, I met my wife at the University of Houston. And that was like the biggest bonus, ever. And she's all decked out too and everything. And we're actually role models students. There was like this circle of students in on campus that we would always see each other at all the leadership events and everything. And she was one of them, and that's kind of how we met. But as many of the mentors that I had, I ended up going into a really bad first job. I picked it because of the title that they were going to offer me and because of the travel opportunities. It was low pay, but I was there for think like a year and a half in my first job. I was the global marketing director for a company here, which I was not a director level. Like I was doing, coordinator stuff, but I got to pick my title. They didn't have a marketing department, so I essentially
Mhm.
got a chance to do whatever the hell I wanted. So I picked my title. I picked uh, my position, and they gave me an office, and it was cool and all. And then, when they said you're going to get to travel, that was the big highlight for me, and I did. I am grateful. I got to go for the first time to Latin America. I went to Bogota. I went to Sao Paulo. I went to Germany. Went to really cool stuff, and I was putting on the trade shows and everything like for them as a marketing director. However, all my other friends were at bigger corporations, maybe not big fancy title, but they were doing these rotational programs where they were learning a little bit of everything. And then the company would see, like, all right, what do you like? like, and then we'll give you resources to follow that. Because just like when you enter college for the first time, there was a lot of stuff I didn't know what marketing was, and I ended up graduating with a marketing degree. I didn't know I would actually love that. Same thing once you go into the real world. There's still so much you have no idea,
Yeah.
things you don't even know exist. And in my role that I got, I was kind of just put in a corner and was like told, do marketing, just whatever you think is best, just do that. There was no mentorship there. There was no real like, what does the future look like here? I wasn't
Mhm.
asking the right questions. That's actually one of my big regrets that I have. I didn't run the jobs and stuff through some mentors that I think would have gave me very good sound advice to say, I don't think this is the best role. Just keep waiting, even though because I for some reason it took me for like a couple months to get a job after graduation. I didn't have something lined up right away.
Mhm.
Um, and I think it was just hard for marketing at that in that point.
Mhm.
And at that point, I had a few interests in many things, so I needed a little bit more mentoring and structure. So it was a cool job for the travel, but it did me bad. It did me a lot of bad because everybody that was working there had been working in the same exact role for like 10 plus years.
Mhm.
So I realized that the reason why I did so well at U of H these couple years before, because I was surrounded by other like extremely ambitious people, students. There's an innovation every day, new opportunities, new things to go after. And then I get put in an environment where there was all that was taken away, and I totally assimilated to the environment, and it was really, really bad for me.
Mhm. Well, the good thing is you didn't stick there long enough to get
Yeah.
super
Yeah.
stuck, you know. And
Yeah.
so after and it's I think there's things that you mentioned, rotational program. I think a lot of people don't even know rotation program exists, but there are companies that are hiring people straight out of college. And
Mhm.
if you go to your career center on campus, they usually are be able to tell you, okay, these are rotational programs that are coming on, and you can get to try things. Because just like when you're in college, you think you know, but you don't know until you start trying different
Oh,
classes, and you say, "This is what I like," and that's
yeah.
where I'm going to go with. Same thing with a career. There's so many people I know who are like, oh, I did Spanish major and now I do marketing. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I was international relations, but I work IT. You know what I mean? It's like
Yeah.
nobody, not everybody goes right to I went to
No,
college, I did this, and now I'm gonna do this. We
yeah,
we kind of branch out and learn through experience,
for
and
sure.
the same thing with your job. If sometimes you go into a job and it might it's not the right fit for you just because of the culture, and the culture is
Yeah,
different. And you do feel a little competitive with other people, it's like, oh,
for sure.
we graduated the same, we struggle the same. My GPA was
Yeah,
a little bit higher than his. How come he's making more money than me? You
yeah,
know what I mean? And
yeah.
there's a lot of soft skills that all of us don't have sometimes to kind of
Mhm.
pick up on that. And so after that job, what came next?
Yeah, so I leave, and, I that whole comparing yourself to other people, I'm 33 now. I barely stopped doing that, like, I wanna say a couple of years ago.
Mhm.
Because yes, the whole decade after graduating, I was continuously comparing myself to other people my age who graduated at the same time, but they're like skyrocketing in their career, which I'm so grateful and happy for them. And I was always wondering, like, what about me? Like, where's mine? It wasn't until a couple of years ago that I had this whole realization that I'm on my own path, and it's going to be very different because the things I want are very different than the things other people want. And um, but I leave that job, and they were kind enough to, I told them, what's up. Once I realized, like, I think I asked, like, what do the next like 3 to 5 years look like for me here? I didn't like the answer. It was kind of essentially like, well, the same. Like, you're gonna do what your job is. And I was like, oh, that's not really what I want. I was transparent with them. It's my first job out of college. Maybe I know I didn't do everything perfect. I could have communicated things better and what my needs were. And honestly, looking back, I wouldn't have taken the role because I didn't really ask too many questions about what I was going to be doing. They gave me like 3 months before, like, to go find a new job in the meantime while I was still employed by them. So that was
Mhm.
nice of them. I ended up working for Baker Hughes. I got a contracted from them at a really cool project that was doing intrapreneurship, different from entrepreneurship. That this is innovation within the company. So Baker Hughes had a project called Digital Wildcatters, where sorry, not digital, it was called Wildcatters, where they said, "Hey engineers, hey scientists, create something, build something, innovate something, invent something new, and if it's good enough, we'll turn it into a spin-off company, and you can become a CEO, and it'll be a whole nother corporation.
Nice.
Um, the problem is that these scientists and engineers are they're mega smart in like STEM soft skills. They're not that good,
Mhm.
and that's where I excelled. And So I got hired on to help them develop pitch decks and other marketing collaterals to the message that they're trying to say, so that your average person could understand, like, what these people were talking about, like what is actually the invention, and
Yeah.
why should we care. And I was being coached by people in the startup world. That was my introduction to entrepreneurship, and I freaking loved it. I loved it so much. I love the pitching, the startup community, everything. That was my like first bite of entrepreneurship, and I've been doing it, ever since. From there, the oil market crashed.
Yeah.
So these people got let go, but I was already hooked on it. So I said, what's a cheap startup business that I can start that's high ROI? And I don't know if you know those bubble soccer things where you kind of go into a plastic bubble and you bump into people.
Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah.
Um, they're not as popular anymore, but a couple years ago, they was like the biggest hit. So I was the second company to bring it to Houston,
Yeah.
and it was a really cool experience. I bought inventory from China. It arrived. I built a company. I did a website, branding, marketing, started promotions and different corporations and events, and it gave me a lot of really cool experience. And I realized that my business degree from U of H is cool and all, but I forgot a lot of the stuff that we learned. I still remember every single lesson that I learned from owning my own business.
Mhm.
I never forget I know exactly why I lost every penny, exactly why, some contract like fell through. I know all the lessons, and I will always carry with them. So I realized I learn best from experience. I need to actually get my hands dirty on things. And
Mhm.
that's how I get excited about stuff. So I did that for like a year and a half. And then what killed my business is that pretty much all my events were after work hours. So, from 5 to 7 around this time right now, you get a good amount of hours of sunlight. Well, in like, what is it, November or October, the time changes and it's 5 o'clock and it's pitch black outside.
Yeah.
All my afternoon business like died
Yeah.
completely.
Mhm.
And I started looking for a job because, I had events on the weekends, but that wasn't enough anymore. I needed to just find another job. I decided to go to a recruiting agency to see, if they could help me out, like as an additional resource. I ended up getting hired by the recruiting agency
Nice.
to work in sales. And that's when I got introduced to tech because as it was a creative staffing agency, and we sold to like marketing, communication directors, IT directors, services like UI UX design and backend and full stack developers and front end and back end and all this other stuff. I didn't really know what that was at that point. I had to study like, what does UI mean? What does UX mean?
Mhm.
What does being information architect mean? Like that's when I got introduced, and I loved that. It was so cool to me. I could see that it was the future. Um, and then I was at that company for about 3 years. And then it's when I started my own. I left there, and then I started building my own marketing agency because I've always really liked the graphic design, branding, and social media things. And because I'm bilingual, I've always been able to do it in both like languages and both
Mhm.
cultures. So I did that for a while, and then I started still was building community. So speaking about mess ups, I built a community called if I can curse on your podcast, it's called Fuck Up Nights. So
You can
Fuck Up.
you can fucking you can
All
fucking
right.
curse. It's
So
cool.
Fuck Up Nights was a global organization that we found during a Mexico City trip.
Mhm.
Um, it's a monthly hangout where you bring 3 to 4 entrepreneurs to talk about their professional failures.
Yep.
Every event, as you know, is this is how I became successful. This event was all like, this is how I fucked up,
Mhm.
and all that stuff that happened around it. We built a really cool community in Houston. Pandemic happens, we shut that down. I still wanted to build a community and build a business out of it. And that's where we decided to build Tech23, which is what you introduced me as, the co-founder and CEO of Tech23, Tech23, a media and entertainment company for the advancement of Latinos in tech.
Nice. And it's really funny the way that you mentioned that you learned a lot more from
Mm,
how you fucked up
mm,
in your stuff than you did in school.
For
And it's
sure.
always like that for me, I always the mentality is like you'll learn a lot more um from burning your hand on the pan than you will from a recipe. It just you have to get in there and you have to learn and you have to fail. And I think fuck up and their failures. I always keep coming back to Batman because Batman, the Nolan, why do we fall? So we learn to pick ourselves back up.
Yeah,
Every time you fail, it's just a new lesson to be taught and to teach
yeah.
you, okay, how do I avoid that failure again? And so with your new company, the Tech 23, and I sorry, I said Tech 23. You didn't
No,
tell
it's
me what
both.
it's
It's both.
you
Yeah,
didn't
it's
tell
both.
me, man. I didn't know.
Yeah.
Okay. So no, but Tech 23. And so obviously you're out there trying to support the Latino community
Mhm.
and help out. And so what are some of the obstacles that you've seen that you're trying to overcome with your company?
Yeah. So a little bit on the purpose of why it is the problem we're solving is that even though there's an astronomical amount of Latinos that use tech products every day, I mean, we're on Zoom right now. There's YouTube, Google, Amazon, Facebook, all these different tech apps and tech hardwares that Latinos use every day. Latinos actually only make up 8% of the tech industry. So we're huge consumers. We're not on the creators or leaders or owners side.
Mhm.
We're very, very low considering the demographics of our country. I, in asking myself, like, well, if you were to ask the Latino community, hey, do you want higher paying jobs? Do you want more like remote opportunities, less physical intensive work? I think the answer is a hell yeah.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
And if you use the tech industry, hey, would you like your, better built products because your end user is a part of the process? Would you like a more diverse workforce? I believe the answer is also yes. So then I was like, well, what's going on? Why is the percentage so low? I believe that it's a communication problem. The way that the tech industry and the rest of STEM speaks to Latino is very boring, so we don't pay attention, or it's not culturally relevant, so we don't really ever like associate ourselves with the industry or see ourselves in the industry. Those are the things that we're solving with our company. So the challenge with that we're facing right now is actually that there isn't too much investment into the Latino community. That's why this problem is happening. So we're building something that hasn't ever been done before. So the challenges with being trailblazers is that there isn't a path laid out for us to follow. There's not somebody out there that I can follow their journey step by step. We're doing something brand new, and a lot of the stuff that we're going to do is going to fail, and a lot of the stuff that we can do is hopefully going to work out well. But now, I'm old enough, mature enough, seasoned enough that I'm cool with taking the punches that are going to come. I know to expect them. And I know that, like, hey, just get through the nose because they're going to teach you something. And that something is going to be the key to that something that is going to work. So I'm very excited for the journey. I'm very excited for us to be able to look in a couple of years and see that we raise that percentage, from 8% to 20, 25% more, that we're able to be recognized in the tech industry, that, Tech 23 is a voice by Latinos for Latinos, and that they're authentic. And that's why we put it in the core of our name. Tech 23 represents 22 Latin American flags plus one, the United States flags, and we focus on the Latino within the United States. And we actually have patent pending, the 23rd Latino, because that's kind of what we're branding ourselves as. This
Nice.
20 Latino looks very different across the United States.
Nice. That's awesome, man. And as someone who is a Latino in tech, I
Mhm.
completely understand. The lack. I mean, it's a continuum. One of the reasons I did this podcast, we're kind of trailblazers in our own paths, and eventually, in your industry and what you're doing, it's hard to go along and get successful without having someone that might have done it before give you guidance.
Yeah,
Mentorship. That's a hard for a lot of us.
yeah,
You talk about, oh, I didn't have a mentor for when I was looking at a job. Yeah, a lot of us don't, and we just take the first
mm,
job because we're used to saying you got to get paid. Yeah, that student
yeah,
loans gonna start kicking in. You're gonna have to
yep,
start working, and we don't know what to do. We don't know where to go with our career. I my first job was with a company doing CRM. I was a CRM
mhm,
admin, and I don't know where to go with that. You know what I mean? And this, I got laid off when they switched to Salesforce. So I didn't even get to learn Salesforce, the biggest one out there. And
yeah,
then from there, I kind of worked different jobs. I was able to get another job where I was CRM admin essentially. And then, I had to take a leap and say, I'm going to do consulting. Consulted with a CRM company, but I learned other
Mm,
things there and I took that risk and that helped me get my job that I have now. And each one was a
nice.
much progressive jump in the last few years financially. But, you know, nobody told me, hey, try this, try that, go this way, go that
Yeah.
way. You're applying for kind of everything because you're like, maybe this job will help me or this job will help
Mhm.
me. And so it's really good to see that, you're working on helping set those situations
Yeah.
out. And so, like, what are some of the programs that you guys are currently running in Houston?
Yeah, so at in this phase of the business, the first part was developing our podcast. It was if the problem is we don't see ourselves in an entertaining way or a culturally relevant way, then I need to show you those people that do exist. Small percentage, but they are there.
Yep.
So we've been interviewing Latinos that work in tech and then also showcase their culture. So we go to restaurants, to bars, to cafes that are like Cuban places or Venezuelan places, and we use that opportunity to showcase their culture. Because another thing we're doing is that Latinos ourselves don't know all other Latinos.
Yep.
We're focused on our own bubble. So I've learned so much from interviewing people from Chile, from Venezuela, from Guatemala, Honduras, because we sat down, we had an intentional conversation, we were open-minded, open-hearted, be like, all right, what's it like being a Guatemalan in the US? Like, tell me
Mhm.
about it. And they tell me their sliver of the whole pie of feeling that way, right? Because we recognize now, I'm of Mexican descent, but Mexicans in Florida, in California, in New York, Chicago probably have a totally different experience than I do,
Yep.
here in Houston. And it's beautiful to get to know ourselves a little bit more. So we're running our podcast. Pretty soon, we're going to be opening up our in-person events. The goal is to have a traveling event where we go to large Latin American, Latino majority cities, and have a big party for their tech community, the Latinos in tech.
Right.
Get everybody to know each other, that everybody exists in a really fun environment, and then be the bridge with these tech companies that they invest with us, so that we can bring both worlds together, but like in an authentic way.
Mhm.
Um, and then once we become this you know pretty authority voice in the tech community, we see a branch of kind of consulting as well, where when tech companies want to release new products or new services, or they need help with recruitment, that they see Tech 23 as a valuable a partner in like, hey, come help us make sure that our message to the people is it's in the right way, that it's in an authentic way, and that we're speaking to them in an exciting way, so that they can want to work for our company, or engage with our products and services.
Nice. Yeah, that's really awesome, man. It's nice to see. It's like I said, as a Latino in tech, you don't really meet too many of us. And
Mhm.
I think I went to um I worked at a law firm, and so they have what's it called? I forget the name of the organization, but it was like a technology legal professionals
Mhm.
program that the you automatically get signed up for ILTA, International Technical Technology for Legal Association, something like that. And so we'd go to events, and I would go to the events in Houston for free booze and
Mm.
food. Just cause I would go, and you'd go there, and it's all these, upper level CIOs, mostly white guys, and I'm just kind of in the background, slowly introduce myself, trying to say hi. My
Yeah.
CIO would come, like, "Oh, hey, Raul, you showed up." I'm like, "Yep." And then we'd go there and just kind of eat food and drink beer, and
Yeah.
try to hang out. I wasn't not really good with networking, and
Yeah.
yeah, and I think in the few years I worked at that company 7 years, so I've been to quite a few. I usually like to go for Christmas because you get gifts and stuff. If you
Yeah.
ever go to a thing and they have something during Christmas, you might leave with a gift. And
Hey, those corporate Christmas parties are legit though.
yeah,
They're always very high ticket items.
yeah, so I think I left with a nice bottle of Moet one year. So it was but it was funny because I'm doing all this, and of all my years doing that, I met one other Latino in there,
Mhm.
and we kind of went right to each other, and then we started having kind of our like monthly lunches. We'll go meet, let's have lunch. How things are going? What's
Yeah.
going on with your career? Just to kind of lean on each other and talk about each other because, like you said, there wasn't many of us. So
Yeah.
I wish you the best of luck on that, man, and I hope
Thanks,
to
man.
see um, a lot of success in it because I think it's it's important, and so with everything that you're seeing and everything that you've been through, I know we've talked a lot about different ideas in technology, but like for Latinos in technology, what's probably one of the biggest obstacles currently they have to deal with to get into technology?
I wouldn't say imposter syndrome, that you don't feel like that you belong. You
Mhm,
don't see people in those roles that are Latino. So then you're just kind of like, oh man, am I going to step foot into another industry where it's just a bunch of people that don't look like me, don't understand me, that I may not be prepped enough for yet. And now I can confidently say that's bullshit.
mhm,
You should go into there because what you carry, being bilingual, being bicultural, understanding the Latino market, which is the largest purchasing power that's coming into the United States. Like if the purchasing power between Latinos in the US alone was the country, we have the fifth largest GDP in the world. We are a MFing powerhouse that is coming, and every single Fortune 500 company now has their eyes set on the Latino community. What is happening is that they want their products and services to, uh, to um, to be connected to the Latino community,
mhm,
because this is the new America that's coming, and I say that because they have to go and hire like agencies, consulting companies to set up the best way possible to talk to the Latino community, because it's not authentic if their CEO and their executive board that looks nothing like the Latino community talks to them. It's not authentic. It's going to come off fake and everything. Man, Mark Zuckerberg can't go talk
mhm,
to the Latino community, but you know, if you're a Latino in tech today, or if you're wanting to go into the industry, you have that as a part of your DNA already. What these companies are paying big money for, to be able to connect with your family and your friends, you do that effortlessly.
mhm,
You just need to learn the skill set. That's the easy part. They're spending a lot of money trying to connect. I mean, the biggest example, the Super Bowl that just happened. The most important commercial in the Super Bowl is the first one that plays right after the halftime show, and that commercial this time was a little Mexican girl from the flag football team,
mhm.
from the NFL flag football team from Mexico, and like she goes and runs and does a bunch of against a bunch of different people.
Yeah.
So this billion-dollar NFL company fully understands their market and who's going to be watching NFL in the future,
Yep.
and they're not the ones. Procter and Gamble. I pay a lot of attention to the YouTube commercials that I get, or ads, and 5-10 years ago they sucked. They were just translating direct translation, and they
Mhm.
suck. They're getting really good now.
Yep.
A lot of them are showing some very genuinely authentic Latino stuff. And if you want to go into tech, they desperately need that. So get over the fact that you're like, well, I don't really know this and that. You honestly don't even need a 4-year degree anymore. A lot of these companies are putting out their own like certificates
Yep.
where you just take this 6 to 8 month certificate and you're good. That's
Mhm.
what they need you to know. You don't need to know history and all this other stuff. They just need you to know this and like be your authentic self. That is now a superpower for these tech companies. They're desperately looking for this talent. There is a huge skills gap right now in across the world, but in the United States especially, our talent pool does not have the right skill set to fill up all these thousands and thousands of open jobs in tech. But Latinos can be part of those jobs. We just need to upskill ourselves. So that little idea that's like, oh, well, I don't know if I'm good enough for that. That's just total BS, because it's actually that your Latinidad is actually the reason, one of the main like assets you're going to be able to bring to the company.
Yeah, and it's you grow up your whole life saying, "Oh, you speak 2 languages. That's gonna be so helpful for you in your career." And it's like hardly ever was, and it's like now it's like, "Oh, you're Latino. Okay, maybe we can figure out something for you."
Yeah,
Especially with creativity and the way socials are now.
yeah,
So, I mean, that's awesome, bro. And so, I once again, I really appreciate you being here. Do you want to plug your podcast? How to get to it,
for
or
sure.
yeah.
On all social media platforms and everything, we're Tech23 US, or Tech23 Us.
Hmm.
That's our website, tech23us.com. Our podcast, you'll find it by typing in Tech23 Us. Social media handles are all Tech23 Us.
Nice. Awesome, man. Well, thank you so much for being here. I really appreciate it. I think this was really informative. I think there's a lot of a lot of stuff that hopefully people can take away from this. So, and then for everyone else listening, once again, thank you guys all for joining me and the support and all the positive feedback I've been getting. And hopefully you'll join me again next time as we continue to learn how to say success in Spanglish.